Our next lesson in our unit on circles is about how to write the equation of a circle. A circle is defined as the set of all points that are equidistant from the center. Here in yellow I have highlighted the general equation of a circle. In parentheses, x minus h squared plus in parentheses y minus k squared equals r squared. The center of the circle is the letters h and k in the equation. The letter r stands for the radius of the circle. So if our center of our circle is at the origin, so at 0, 0, our equation would look like this. X squared plus y squared equals r squared. We would not have to subtract h or k since those two numbers are 0. In our first example here, it wants us to write the equation of this circle on the right. You'll notice that the center point there in red is located at -1, +1. The radius of the circle goes from that center point all the way to the top of the circle right there. If we count how many units that is, we get 5 for the radius. So now we know our center point at -1, +1, that would be our h and our k values, and we also know our radius is 5, so we can plug those things into the standard equation for a circle. So our equation would look like this. X minus a -1, I'm going to put the -1 in parentheses here, squared, plus y minus a +1 squared equals my radius squared. We said our radius was 5, so that's 5 squared. Our final step is just to simplify this equation to get our final equation for the circle here. Anytime we subtract a negative number, it becomes positive, so instead of x minus a -1, this would just become x plus 1 squared plus, nothing changes here, this is still y minus 1 squared, and then 5 squared is 5 times 5, which would be 25. So there's my standard equation of the circle drawn on the right. For these next 4 problems, we're going to write the standard equation of the circle given the attributes. On number 1, the center of the circle is at 2, -3. So remember, that's our h and our k values. And it tells us that the radius is 6. So the radius is our r. So all we have to do is plug those numbers into the equation to get our equation for the circle. Alright, so we know that it's x minus h. So that would be x minus 2 squared plus, in parentheses, it's y minus k. Well, our k value is a -3, so remember, if we subtract a negative, it becomes positive. So that's going to be y plus 3 squared. And then we square our radius as well. So 6 squared would give me 36. On number 2, it tells us that the center is at -3, +2. So -3 is our h, +2 is our k. And then it says that this circle is tangent to the y-axis. So if you remember what the word tangent means that it only touches the circle at one point. If this is true, our radius is going to be the x value here. So our radius is going to be whatever the x value is if it's tangent to the y-axis. Alright, so in this case, our y value was our x value was -3. Okay, so we'll come back to that here in just a second after we start writing our equation for the circle. So in parentheses, I'm going to put x, and remember it's minus h, so h is a -3, so that becomes x plus 3 squared plus, in parentheses, y minus k, so y minus 2 squared, and then we said our radius is a -3 since it's tangent to the y-axis. So what is -3 squared? So basically I'm just going to square this. -3 squared would be a +9. So there's my equation for that circle. Okay, for number 3, our center is at -4, -6, so -4 is h, -6 is k, and it says we have a radius of square root of 12, so that's my r. Alright, so let's plug these numbers in our equation. So this would be x minus h, so x minus a -4 becomes x plus 4 squared plus y minus a -6 that would become y plus 6 squared. And then my radius squared would be the square root of 12 squared, which means that the square root and the squared cancel each other out, so this would just be 12 here. On number 4, our center is at 2, 7. So h is 2, k is 7, and this time it's tangent to the x-axis. So our radius this time is going to be whatever our y value is. Alright, so in this case, my y value is 7, so my radius here is going to be 7, and don't forget we're going to square it here in a minute. Okay, so let's go ahead and start writing our equation here. X minus h, so x minus 2 squared plus y minus 7 squared equals, what was my radius squared? We said my radius was 7. 7 squared is 49. Alright, on our last problem here, it wants us to draw the circle with the equation of x minus 3 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals 9. So I need to figure out what is my center point and what is my radius based on this equation. So let's start with the center. We know that the center is at h comma k. Okay, remember this is my h, this is my k. Alright, so if it's x minus 3, that means that my h value is a positive 3. And then over here where it's y plus 2, since it's plus 2, we know that k is going to be a negative 2. So I have my center. It should be at 3, negative 2. So let's go over here and graph that real quick. 1, 2, 3, down 1, 2, about right there. Alright, now we need to figure out what the radius is. So we know that our radius here, it tells me that r equals, we have 9 at the end of that equation, but remember that would be 9, that would be after it's been squared, so we need to take the square root to figure out what r is. So in this case the square root of 9 would be 3. So our radius is 3. So what I can do to graph this now is I know that my center is at positive 3, negative 2, which we've already graphed that. Now we're going to go from that point and let's go 3 points to the right for our radius. So 1, 2, 3 would be about right there. Let's go 3 up from the center as well, because remember the radius can go in any direction. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 to the left. And we can go 3 down as well. 1, 2, 3, about right there. Alright, and then we can just connect our dots to get our circle. Alright, because once again that radius right there is 3. Alright, that's it for equations of circles.